Just responding to somebody who posted all over my channel off topic and seemed to be harassing other people, so I had to delete some of the comments because they didn't seem on topic and looked like he was harassing them. I think he was harassing me, but here we go. You look like a villain in a bad superhero movie. Now, I posted this under a video where I explained to people that you could go out and deadass build a Commodore 64 or some of the other retro computers, and you can even get newer computers that are open sourced that are act-alikes so that you could have fun with them, along with some other stuff I talked about. Now, this person who posted underneath other people's comments on other videos seemed to be just trying to get attention and pick a fight, and I didn't know why. It looked weird. So I deleted some of the comments because they were, over the top. But anyway, I don't even remember what most of them were. But I did post a link to how to deprogram yourself after watching too many Q videos or something, and it'll be linked below, and it'll include the comment I left. But anyway, this person told me, you look like a bad superhero or a bad superhero movie's villain. So after I posted the link to how to deprogram yourself from Q, he says, "Do you know what WAP means thanks to Cardi B?" Now, apparently this was him posting it while I was posting the link. It wasn't about it. If anybody's curious, waptek, if you used to look for it a few years ago, it also went to a porn site. Right after I set up my channel, some random porn site or something like that got named waptek or some variation of it, like waptrick. And if you try to look up where it goes to, and now it's just a word people stuck on a lot of things. So anyway, but at one point it went to a porn site. Anyway, then he actually sees my comment saying how to deprogram himself from Q. I'm not falling victim to Q. I'm just watching what all you dummies have to say. It's entertaining. And then he decides to taunt me by saying, God governs all, not you, not Trump, not Biden. Trust God, follow God. Which has nothing to do with anything we've talked about, unless he's equating Q with God. But anyway, since you're so smart, why don't you know the times we live in? Okay. That might be, if we were being generous with this person, it's because I was talking about retro tech, but that I don't think we need to be generous. You like Nazis and guns. I have guns. I don't like Nazis. This is cold reading. This is somebody throwing stuff on a wall and seeing if it sticks. And it ain't spaghetti. It's monkey shit. And then he says, you've officially been trolled. Okay. So at this point, there wasn't anything you were doing for a good reason. And I'm sure if I refresh the page, I'll find 14 more of these comments or something like that. Or maybe he's gotten bored and gone off and found something better to do. So we'll do that real quick, see if it actually brings up something new. So anyway, I did a video today about not just how to deprogram yourself from Q, a kind of a side subject, but I brought up something I found that was very disturbing. About the time this person started posting crap, I had just finished watching a video that tried to explain heliocentrism and geocentrism. I've already done a video about this. I call it the spirograph model versus the record player model. One is not more right than the other, I guess, but one is definitely wronger than wrong because it requires, it isn't a solution or a model of anything. It's an excuse not to admit that there's a better model. Anyway, I found somebody who had a YouTube video up, and some students from some schools were there. I'm taking this as a class I have to take, blah, blah, blah. And a bunch of flat earthers came in and started antagonizing them. So I told one of them, hey, contact your buddies and make sure that they know that they can flag these people. Just mention you're a minor. They won't be bothering you anymore. But some of the people posting into the video also made comments like, a lot like this, some of these comments. At one time, we were allowed to believe we were the center of the universe. Now we're required to believe we're a little dinky rock orbiting a sun, flying through space. I don't want to believe that. And I noticed on his channel he's a Muslim, or at least professes to be. So I reminded him that at one time Islam was open to science and had already figured this shit out, and figured out that we did orbit the sun. But a particular leader listened to a particular, not really a religious leader, but basically an astrologer, who was angry that he was being told that he couldn't predict where stars were because he couldn't. He didn't know what he was doing. So he decided to tell everybody calculus was the work of the devil. And instead of us all speaking Arabic and landing on the moon maybe 100 years earlier, they're still working out how not to be in the 1400s in some countries. I reminded him, your population you were in figured this shit out a very long time ago and listened to somebody whisper into a king's ear, and suddenly you weren't allowed to do anything other than read effectively one fucking book. That's a stereotype. That's not really true, but that is essentially what they're required to do as education. Their entire education is supposed to come from one book. A lot like Christian fundamentalists are told you're not supposed to read any other books because they're competition. And another person posted, he's apparently Hindu. He said, such and such person in history, which I had to go look up because I forgot what the person's name was about, figured out the same thing. And it said, yes, and it's very sad that some people in the modern era, including the West, don't understand this or refuse to believe it. I also pointed out to the other person that was complaining from his Arab world or whatever, the other person, he said that this is all Eurocentric. Well, European-centric belief was that the Earth was flat and everything orbited it. When they found out it was wrong, then they made it mandatory everybody learned their way of doing things, which was a match for some of your societies. And again, your society threw this out a long time ago when it was right. And now we have people from other countries, yes, China and Russia, who don't want anybody in this country to have confidence that they're able to do something as simple as add two numbers together and get the right answer. I mean, that's it. There's no practical value in making a model of the solar system and sending off satellites or firing off probes that really did leave our solar system. There's no real practical value to it unless you're going to get something out of it. And instead, people are being told to shit on it. There's millions and millions and billions of dollars by today's money, at least. And we learned a lot. So let's take a shit on it because some people whisper into your ear on the internet. Okay, let's look at the heliocentric and geocentric model. The heliocentric model basically says you can model our solar system like a record player. Well, not really. More like a record. Just a record with a bunch of individual songs in bands. There's usually like 12 songs. That's a pretty good number. And instead of songs, you have little ruts. And you put your little ball bearings in it and they roll around it. And that's your basic model of our solar system. And it's not accurate. Well, it's not bad either. At least it puts them where they are and it shows you that they don't bump into each other. Okay, well, let's make a literal geocentric one instead of the heliocentric one, where the sun is in the middle. Let's put the Earth in the middle. Now, you're already seeing what would happen if we got them all rotating this record, and you stick your finger where the Earth is and make it rotate around that, and make this independently have that rotation pattern. You would see all sorts of fantastic, pretty spirals and stuff happen because it would look really chaotic. It'd be unbalanced. It wouldn't be predictable. It'd be pure chaos, like the devil himself. But it would mechanically work, but it's just you doing your perspective. And the funny thing is, if you do that with the correct timings, with the orbits of the planets, and actually make them the right shape, they're mostly elliptical. They're kind of egg-shaped pathways. It works. You can actually predict where the planets will be. But the thing is, that's just because of your perspective on Earth. That's what's useful about it, is if you make a model like that, which you can't really build and make it maintainable, you're able to predict where the planets are. But then again, if you just let the sun be the center of it and do it, which makes it a lot easier to build the model, and it makes it literally like that clock that people talk about that the watchmaker God made. The orbits work. And all you do is stop it at some point and observe from your angle on the planet, on Earth, what angle you're looking at. The planets will be where they're supposed to be. This was caused by the word planet, if you're not aware of it, being a word for wanderer. When you'd look at the sky, you'd see over many weeks a planet move and then go in a little circle and continue. Now, if you want to make the Earth the center of our solar system, that means most of, if not all of the planets have to have an orbit where it goes around us, let's say, in a weird kind of shaped orbit, and at one point it does a curlicue. And if you do it over time, it makes a really pretty pattern, like a spirograph. The trouble is there are the other planets, and they keep running into each other, or almost. They come really close to running into each other. And this, of course, the word begs the question is the wrong term, but that's what everybody says, so let's just go with it. It begs the question, why the hell is it doing a little loop-de-loop, and who's doing it? And of course the answer has to be a god of some sort. But if you don't make it to where the entire solar system orbits the Earth, there's none of that loop-de-loop shit going on, and there's no fine-tuning required, especially every freaking few years or so, or whatever it is, depending on the planet. And you don't run into a situation where eventually something would have to run into something. Remember, when we observe things, we only have a narrow view, and we can extrapolate things. But it's inevitable if you run your equations long enough, the planets would run into each other if you actually did use the Earth as the center of the solar system. If you don't, they never run into each other, really. There are some exceptions, big ones. Pluto and a couple of others come really close to it. But one of these models isn't completely fucking impossible to maintain, and in fact doesn't require any maintenance, and would keep running infinitely. It would literally always have been, always will be. It is eternal. But it's only eternal if you don't demand that somehow you, not the Earth, not God, that you can't demand that you're the center of the solar system. And you run into this model of us not just orbiting the sun. That's all we have to do. And everything works. Remember, it's a perspective thing. You can use the other model if you want to. It's much more useful to predict sunrises and sunsets, and it's how we see things. But it's a model that inevitably fails over time unless you sit there and fine-tune it and correct it constantly. On the other hand, even if you fuck up the orbit timings for every planet we have just a teeny bit and eventually accumulates an error, which it does. I mean, you have to figure out how long it is, but it goes on for thousands of years instead of a few years. You can correct it, but it doesn't require correction. It'll put the planets basically where they're supposed to be. And again, if you do the observation, you're like, oh, it's off. And you can put it back and you find out, well, it's fine-tuned by you, figuring out by observing that your model was wrong. So instead of having the ego-busting factor of saying it's not perfect, but it works better, like we do now, people decided to make it completely chaotic to where there's no way to understand it, and then said it's in God's hands. And again, this was understood a long time ago, a long time before anybody in Europe figured it out, in several different societies. I don't even know how many. And in every society, they go up and down with their scientific knowledge because someone has to be triggered by a fact. Facts trigger people much, much more than you might believe. But the infamous case of Eurocentric populations deciding that the Earth had to be the center, and then suddenly the sun had to be the center. So this person says, God governs all, not you, not Trump, not Biden. Trust God, follow God. I'm just watching what all of you dummies have to say. It's entertaining. I'm not falling victim. This is this guy saying eventually, you've been trolled successfully, asking me why don't I understand the times I'm in? You like Nazis and guns. I don't like Nazis, but I like guns. I never said I like Nazis, obviously. This is a person seeing what'll trigger me and what I'll respond to. And his comments are going to get deleted today. He went from mild to wild rather rapidly, even invoking Cardi B and WAP the song. It's waptek, sir. It's different. Wicked ass Pinot. Anyway, the point I'm making here, and there is one, is this sort of behavior was being done in a video where people were trying to learn something, and I advised people, you don't need to have a chip on your shoulder about European-centric bullshit because originally your population had this. And the other guy, I feel for you not being recognized as one of your cultures figuring this out a long time ago. And I told the kids, yeah, you should flag some people. Apparently I pissed someone off. Flat earthers, sometimes they're not flat earther Americans. Sometimes they're just people who want you to believe that. Just saying. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.